So Lisa, I'm going to go back to the conversation we had on the plane, because it was really inspirational for me yesterday when I was sort of thinking through what I thought was meaningful to say. And you know, you're at a large media company, and your challenge right now is how do you take all of these platforms of opportunity and actually make them actionable and create value for both as a programmer, because at the end of the day you create programming, that's, you know, and bread is still buttered by your carriage subscriber compensation, right? And on the other hand, actually turn the business around so you can do that, and everybody's sort of, you know, rowing the boat in the same direction. Yeah. It's hard, I know that.
Yes, it's very hard. I would say it's evolving now, which is why I'm particularly interested in roadmaps, but I also am a big believer that sometimes you just have to go out and do it. And that in a large media company, you can be paralyzed by what are other people doing, you know, so because Bravo was the young days, we didn't have that much to lose. I just went out and built multiple mobile clubs. I have no idea what mobile club model was going to turn into. That eventually turned into, you know, when Twitter came out, I was like, it was one of the first season of Top Chef. I said, well, what if the chefs like tweeted during the show? Like it was like the first couple months of Twitter. And then we did it for a few weeks, and we had like 40,000 followers to an account. And we were like, wow, there's something there. So I think part of it is you have to just get out and do it, and then learn as you go, and then just pivot as you go along. So that's really been our strategy. But I increasingly, as I see the effort we put into one-offs, whether it be a Shazam or something like that, I really would like to be building a more flexible foundation so we can move quickly and then follow the, you know, in the short term, follow the revenue where it is, and long term building into infrastructure that will help the whole entity grow.
So I'm going to get back to that revenue on the last part, but for those of you, so we're like the inner sanctum of online video geeks, right? And for those of you that don't know, there's also a group of us that are the like iTV, TV 2.0 dorks, and we're probably even slightly dorkier. And Lisa is like iconic there, because the work that she has done as it relates to pushing the envelope on transmedia storytelling, cross-platform creation, the work she's done at Bravo is groundbreaking. And so, you know, you are getting a woman talking right now that is taking calculated risks and creative proof points around this space, so kudos on that. So
and that actually helped determine our business model, actually, which was, believe me, I'm never a big planner. So when we kept on just trying to do these things, I realized that clients, and if you met the right advertisers and they had trust in you, that they actually wanted to experiment. So they wanted to, you know, there are sometimes agencies can sort of run, you know, a year or two behind, so that, you know, 3 years after we were doing social, people were like, we want to do a little more social. But what I found was for Bravo, by having a business model that was slightly ahead, we were able to monetize it so that we were able to make money. Not huge money, but along the way.
Are these still innovation budgets, or are you actually tapping into incremental dollars that are part of sort of the whole TV bucket? Like, where's the money coming from when you do have advertisers that are progressive enough, willing to take calculated risks with you?
I just have my own P&L, and the great little dirty secret about digital is it's not that expensive to do. So I never had TV money, so we would just make calculated risks, and it was never a huge amount of money, and if you found the right advertiser, you more than paid your money back.
So are you finding, so what does that relationship look like with, so you execute a digital campaign around Top Chef, right? So is typically that advertiser also, have they bought out in the upfronts? Are they running TV spots as well? And then how are you, are you forced to sort of architect a campaign that doesn't require that coordination between the TV and the digital side of the house? Do you do that for them? Is there like a diplomacy side of what you do?
Well, the way Bravo works is that over 50 to 60% of our digital buys are 360. So they're tied to an on-air buy, often done in the upfront. And then you have long-term relationships with Toyota or other clients that are built in the show. And then that, of course, creates barriers. So if you have one car company, you're going to have other car companies. So that's somewhat restricting. But I would say in the last few years, we've really, as people have embraced digital more and they've embraced kind of funky interactive TV things more, we've had much more leeway on what I would call a pure play budget. So we've had, you know, big, you know, $750,000, which is a lot for us, investments on the pure play side as well. So it's really been, you know, and I see that's where the growth is going to be, because you can only jam in so many integrated 360 sales into any given show.
Right.
Top Chef being one that's particularly suitable, but someone like Real Housewives probably doesn't have as many 360 deals.
So Rob, what's the dynamic now between sort of the upfronts, charting the course of then where the investments are in the second screen and the ecosystem around TV? Is that kind of the sun and everything else is the solar system? I mean, what's that dynamic, or does it just not matter? Is it about driving innovation for your clients and it doesn't necessarily need to be tied to endemic buys in television?
Well, I think you have to start by understanding what the upfront market actually is. When I moved to the US, the upfront was a source of mystery to me. I'd heard it, and all I realized was that the men were men and the shrimp were terrified in the upfront. There was a lot of them gave their lives to the broadcast companies. You should take a moment, I think, for all the crustacea. Anyway. But what it turned out was that the upfront market is just a futures market, and it's a futures market in a very, very valuable commodity. And the object of the exercise, if you're in the agency world, the first thing you think about in the futures market is to establish where the tipping point of value in the marketplace is. And the way you do that, which is kind of really easy to say and fabulously hard to execute, is that you assess the demand side of the equation and the supply side of the equation. You do it by channel, you do it by day part, you do it by month in order to assess where the market is. And then you get to a point as the market develops when you predict that, and you advise your clients as to how long or short they should go in that market. And that's the core of what we do in the upfront market. And it's a very big delta between success and failure in that market. Now, having said that, we know that there are certain shows and certain commitments that you will make in a market like that, particularly around sports, which is the golden goose of television, but in other areas as well, where you will think ahead and say, these are the places that are going to be our tent poles, either from a ratings delivery point of view or from an integration delivery point of view, because those tent poles have become so expensive that what we have to do now is find every mechanism we can to extract greater value from those tent poles. And greater value manifests itself very often in integrations in the broadest sense, in second screen and other activities in a slightly narrower sense. And then you have to consider why we're doing that. And the reason why we're doing that is that integrations used to kind of live and die, stand on their own. They would be here today and gone tomorrow, and it may have added some cheer to the audience, it may not have done. But one of the reasons why we do it now is that we have these things like Twitter followers and Facebook fans, and these integrations are a very effective way of creating a one-off build in the fan base and the follower base, which you then have to turn into an annuity.
So let me ask you a question, put that in a slightly different context, okay? By virtue of having momentum and a larger number of Twitter follows, more socially active or on the second screen active audience, does that make the TV inventory more valuable?
Yes, and it makes the TV inventory more valuable because if you can create an annuity as a result of the activity you do with TV, it's important. The other thing that I think is kind of interesting in this area is if you take the top 100 programs outside of sports possibly, and look at those programs that generate the most social action, if you like, whether it's the number of tweets or Facebook or whatever it might happen to be, there's an interesting social arbitrage now on the basis that the top 100 programs by ratings are the top 100 programs by social activity.
But that's because social activity, like I was saying before, Twitter is not reflective of anything other than Twitter. And it's unfortunate that, Nielsen is getting into this because certain shows naturally drive Twitter followings and other shows that actually have more viewers, right? During the election, Anderson Cooper, on a daily basis, was shocked that what people were saying on Twitter about the election in no way matched up to what the actual polls of real people were showing. And everybody was, look at that. And it's the same thing with TV. You have certain shows that will naturally get much more of a Twitter following by dint of the content and the audience, and it doesn't map to
Right.
what your ratings will show.